this center cap off, just use a pry bar. You can use a rag if you don't want to scratch the wheel. And use a 19mm socket, take the lug nuts off. Remove the wheel. Now I'm going to take the caliper off. I'm not going to take it off separate from the bracket. I'm going to take it all together off. So just take the bracket bolts out, use a 15mm socket, take this one out and the one that's a little bit higher up. And just take a pry bar or a screwdriver and just pry out the caliper. And you can just set it aside over here. If you want to, you can use a brake caliper hanger, but as long as it sits right there, you should be good. Now I'm going to remove that screw right there, use a T40 socket. Now I'm going to take the rotor off. I'm just going to use a hammer and just tap in these areas. Loosen it up. There we go. Slide it off. All right, now I'm going to take this axle nut off. I'm going to use a 32mm socket. Take that off. All right, now I'm just going to tap the axle a little bit, use a punch. You don't really want to hit on the end of it because you don't want to mushroom the end of it, and it'll prevent putting the axle nut on later. So just make sure it's loose. We don't have to hammer it all the way in. Just make sure you see movement, which is good. Now I'm going to pull the wheel speed sensor out. Just use an 8mm socket. Take this bolt out. Take that bolt out. Just use some needle nose pliers. Try to twist it a little bit. Try not to break it. And slide it out. Just set it aside. I'm going to take these bolts out. I'm going to use an 18mm socket. There's 3 that you can see right here, and there's a 4th one on the other side of the axle. Right, take these bolts out, and then the other one right there. Just hit the back side with a hammer. Slide it out. Right, just take some, you could take some emery cloth or some sandpaper and just sand down any corrosion. Get some brake parts cleaner, just clean it up. I'm just going to put a little thin coat of anti-seize on here, just to prevent corrosion. All right, take the hub and line it up. The 2 holes at the top are closer together than the 2 at the bottom. And take the bolts, get the bolts started from the back side. And now I'm going to torque these bolts to 122 foot-pounds. Now take the axle nut, put the old axle nut on. And I'm going to take a pry bar and just go in between the lugs. And you want to make sure you don't want to put the wheel on here and torque it with the wheel with the weight of the vehicle on it. You want to make sure there's no load on the actual wheel bearing, and torque this to 258 foot-pounds. Now what that's going to do is that's going to seat the axle. What you need to do next is take this nut off and put a new nut on and torque that to 258. Take the wheel speed sensor and slide that back in position. Put the bolt in and snug that up. That's good. If you want, you can put some anti-seize right there. Put the rotor back on, line it up with the hole, and put the screw back in. And just snug that up. And take the brake caliper and just slide it over the rotor. Put the bolts on and torque these bolts to 76 foot-pounds. And put the wheel on. Put the lug nuts on. Now I'm going to torque these lug nuts to 110 foot-pounds in a star pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. And just go around again, double check. Take the center cap, line it up, tap it on.